来，大家可以看一下，这是贝尔故居的介绍，是吧？是在他们贝尔故居的门口的这么一个大牌子，是不是相当于一个纪念碑似的，是吧？那么呢，这个贝尔故居呢是他父母是吧？贝尔其实本人这个在这儿住的时间不长，他父母呢在这个1874年是吧，100多年前是吧，在这儿他建立了一个这个 foundation， 就是那种资金吧。然后呢，他们在这儿呢成功的这个发明了长距离的，就是 long distance 远距离的这个贝尔的这个电话，是吧？就是说通过长的电话线吧，是吧？把这个发明出来了，而且呢，这个音质很清晰，是吧？这是他们那个本身这个就是说，它跟那个以前的不同，是吧？然后呢，他的这个他家里人呢，很多人都是这个聋哑人，聋人是吧？不一定傻人。那么呢，他母亲和他的太太呢，都是耳朵都不好。那么他需要这个刺激一下他们的这个神经，是吧？所以他就在这方面很专业的做这方面的工作。所以呢，这跟他发明电话呢也有很大的联系，是吧？这个就是说，他后来呢也因此呢也取得很大的成绩，是吧？那么这个纪念碑呢本身是1997年6月28号建立的，是吧？这个也有20多年了，是吧？一会儿我们再看一下它里边的那个设施，是吧？来，大家看我这个身后就是贝尔的故居，是吧？就是他父母住的这个房子。那么呢，这个现在呢，今天还是在开放，是吧？今天因为冬天嘛，秋天嘛，人那个不是很多，但是还是有人，这个有很多游人在参观，是吧？那么呢，一会儿呢，我们要进到里面去看，它外围就是这样，这是一个乡村。是吧？就像白求恩的故居一样，他这些名人呢，都是在这些，山水这个很人杰地灵的地方，是吧？这附近环境非常好，对面呢是这个玉米地，是吧？这个非常优雅的地方。
疫情关系啊，我们都是全副武装来到这里头，但尽管是那个疫情吧，也阻止不了我们对那个先辈这个脚步的探索，我们和挖掘。今天我们请来了资深主持人 Kevin 先生给我们做那个主要英文讲解，因为他的英文比较好，所以说我们今天来到了距多伦多以西的将近170公里的一个贝尔故居。
对，
是18几年是吧
？1876年。
1876年一个名人
，100多年前。
等一下我们对那个贝尔故居进行一下子这个实地的一个摄像和参观啊，希望能给我们观众带来一些兴趣，是吧？
对。
对贝尔的过去的一个脚步的这个发明的探索。
对。对，大家看这个牌子是吧？看后面这个小房子，这个房子呢比刚才咱们看的那个要小一点。这个呢是贝尔的第一个电话的办公室，是也可以说世界上第一个交换机，就电话的那种交换台啊。就是它的第一个实验室就在这儿，是吧？为什么这个贝尔实验室这么有意义呢？就是说1877年，是吧？就是说。150年前吧，是吧？这个世界上第一个交换机就是在这儿诞生了，是吧？所以说这个最大的纪念意义，是吧？我们现在这个看的这个手机，是吧？它的这个鼻祖啊，最原始的这个老祖宗就是这个贝尔，是吧？它这个交换机，是吧？后来是从无线到有线，从有线到无线，是吧？后来发明成手机，但是原理都是一样的。最初的这个发明就是贝尔，是吧？这个我们可以看看他们后面这个建筑，是吧？这个交换机，啊，是吧？这是贝尔的这个办公室，它这个 office， 是吧？就是电话办公室，电话公司吧，是吧？按咱们现在说就是电讯公司。世界上第一个电讯公司就是从这儿诞生的， 哎，对，对对对。现在是什么罗扎士啊，什么贝尔公司啊，什么电信盈科啊，是吧？包括中国的什么中国电信呐、是吧？那都是后来的，在它的基础上，在它发明的基础上，一步一步更新，是吧？一步一步改进。哎，就像现在的手机呀、是吧？这鼻祖都是从贝尔来的，是吧？我们现在打手机是吧，都是从贝尔这儿发明过来的。
here, he just couldn't find a job. So he ended up taking a job in the United States, in Boston. And so from that time till the time he married a girl from Boston in 1877, he was spending his summer and winter vacation on the farm here in Brantford in Canada with his parents, and then working in Boston in the United States during the school year. So that is why both Brantford and Boston claim Alexander Graham Bell and the telephone, because he was living in both places and working on the telephone in both places. But it was here on his parents' farm in the summer of 1874 he had the idea for the telephone, and it was in Brantford that he did his first long-distance telephone call. So he always said Brantford had a big part to play in the telephone's development. After the first telephone companies started, he's gone back to Brantford. He got married, he and his wife went to Europe, he lived there for a year. When they came back to North America, they had a new baby daughter with them, and his wife's parents wanted them to move to Washington, D.C. So that is where they moved. His parents joined them there in 1881 after selling the farm and their telephone business. The house itself has actually been a museum since 1910, so for 110 years, and Bell family while they were here. So we'll go room by room, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And we'll start when you're ready with the library. So you're going to step in up to the rope there, and I'll pop around and tell you about it.
Okay, thank you.
自己参观的。
这是他的书房，在这儿吗？
哎呀，这是烟头。
Yeah. So this is where Alexander Graham Bell's father, Melville Bell, worked. Melville was a professor at the University of Edinburgh. He taught speech and elocution, so public speaking, studying languages, and also, as they called it, correcting his students' accents. Back then, it was not proper to speak English with a Scottish accent. They had to sound very English, like the royal family. So that's what he was doing. He was teaching his students to speak that way. So the Bells themselves never sounded very Scottish. They sounded very English. But here in Canada, accent was not such a problem. So here he got to work one-on-one with people who had real speaking problems, people who stuttered, people who lisped. You find them in here working with Melville. And then in the afternoons, Melville, Alexander's father, looked after the farm. So he was growing apples, cherries, pears, and plums. He was raising chickens, turkeys, ducks, geese. He had a couple of pigs. He had a horse, he had a cow, he had vegetable gardens. He very much enjoyed farm life and the property. This is actually what it looked like while they lived here.
Oh.
So Alexander's mother was an artist, and we have much of her artwork in the house, so I will point it out as we go along. Otherwise, the family just used this space like a living room. This is where they would come. That is her self-portrait.
这贝尔的妈妈，
他母亲。
His mother made a living
贝尔的母亲。
doing portrait art.
So
For her marriage.
his mother was born here.
No, she was from England originally. Yep. The only reason they came to Canada was because they had friends who had come to Canada before them.
Oh.
So they stayed with those friends for a little bit and bought this house.
His father is Scotland, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And the mother is England.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, she had moved to Scotland when she was a young woman. I think it was cheaper to live there.
Oh.
And they met in Scotland when Eliza drew Melville Bell's portrait. So this is the portrait his mother drew of his father.
Wow.
And that is how they met.
Oh, it's good drawing.
Yeah.
他妈妈是艺术家，画画的，这些都是他妈妈画的画。哦。包括那些素描都是他妈妈画的。
Yeah, so his
Mother.
yeah.
Father, yeah.
So his father was a professor, his mother was an artist. So very talented family.
I know.
Yeah.
So what kind of professor his father?
He taught basically anything to do with speech.
Oh, speech, right?
So speaking to large groups, how to use your voice to to project out to an audience. Alexander's grandfather Bell actually worked with actors doing the same thing.
Really?
Yeah.
So these things I think is very helpful for
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Thinking about the.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes, good, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So, any questions about the library?
You said the accent in the Scotland. Do the Scotland people speak English or?
They do, but they have a bit of a different accent.
Oh.
Because there are also two other languages that are spoken in Scotland. One is called Scots, which sounds a bit like English, but a bit
it's the
different.
same language.
It's similar. Like you can.
It's also English, right?
Yeah. And then the
called
other
Gaelic?
language.
Oh.
And Gaelic is a very ancient language.
Oh.
Yeah, it's.
But I think very similar, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Chinese and Japanese, it's very similar.
Yeah, Scots and English are very similar. Gaelic is closer to, I don't know what it's close to be honest, because it is a very old language. So yeah, probably closer to some of the like Indo-European.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Okay.
There's lots of rooms.
Yeah, many rooms.
Yeah, so this is their dining room. This is where they would eat all of their meals. This is the table that they sat at. His mother bought this for the house. So most days you would find Alexander, his mother, his father, and his brother's wife. His older brother was married for a short time before he died, and so they brought his brother's wife to Canada with them. And then this is a painting Alexander's mother did of Alexander. Yeah, so this is Alexander and his brothers when they were little boys.
Oh, really?
In Scotland.
Oh. How many brothers?
Just two.
Just two, right?
So that's Alexander.
Oh.
He would be about 5 years old in this picture. That's his brother Edward. Edward would be about 4 years old. Oh. And then that's his older brother, Melville James, but they called him Melly because their father was also Melville. Oh. And Melly would have been 7 when this was painted. So his parents only had the 3 sons. His mother was 34 years old when she married, so older for that time.
Yeah.
And they were very close, but unfortunately, when they were teenagers, they all got tuberculosis.
Wow.
Ted died when he was only 18 in 1867. Melly died when he was 25 in May of 1870. And Alexander was brought to Canada and survived. Rest and fresh air seemed to help cure it, and a farm in Canada was the perfect place to rest. And it worked. Yeah. In the corner, this little instrument is called a melodeon. So it's like it's not a piano, it's more like an organ.
It's not piano.
Yeah, you pump the air into it.
Oh.
And Alexander used this for a telephone test.
Oh, really?
It was the first musical instrument ever played over a telephone.
Oh.
So he took it right into downtown Brantford, right into the center of Brantford, and hooked it into the hooked a telephone transmitter into the telegraph system. Oh. And he played into the transmitter while 3 young women sang. And up here on the farm, listening on a receiver, his parents heard him playing music live 4 miles away.
Wow.
That was the first time that had ever been done. And that was his first public demonstration of the telephone.
Wow.
Yeah. And he loved music. So that's why he decided to use music as part of his test. He was a very talented musician. He actually trained with a concert pianist as a boy. That was supposed to be his career. His mother wanted him to become a pianist, go out and play for the public. Didn't happen, but he said music taught him everything he knew about sound.
Oh.
Yeah. And then this is another of his mother's paintings up here. So,
Wow.
a river somewhere in Scotland.
Oh.
One of her little watercolor sketches there. And then there's actually one of her miniature landscapes right behind you. This little piece here is a tiny landscape that she did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't know who did the other piece. Yeah.
都是他妈妈画的. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's the Scotland, It's also having the fresh air, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I think his parents thought if they brought him right away from Scotland, they would also force him to rest because he wouldn't know anyone here.
Oh.
And he wouldn't be, he wouldn't go back. Yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah, relax, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he had actually planned to not come to Canada, but he ended up liking it here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's in the middle, right? He's a
Yeah.
younger sister and
yeah, so
elder
there's
brother, right?
older brother, younger brother,
He's
yeah,
in the
in the
middle.
middle. Yep.
他有个哥哥，有个弟弟，后来都去世了。然后呢，他是在中间，他老二。对，后来因为他们都去世了，就他只有他一个人生活下来。
他母亲画的画，
他母亲画的，对。
画他们家。
啊，对，这是哥仨嘛，说哥仨嘛。
OK。
Yeah. Okay. So the next room is the kitchen.
OK，
就是我们厨房。
Yeah.
哦，这是玩 old
Yeah.
stove, right？
Yeah.
这很老的当时的那个炉子，那个年代的炉子。
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not a room that Alexander spent a lot of time in, but it was important.
Yeah.
This is where his mother and the family's maid, so the girl who worked for them, made all of their meals. And this is also where they would have washed their laundry, washed their clothes.
Yeah.
And where they did pretty much all their household chores started here. And the stove was made right here in Brantford. So Brantford was a small town, but there were lots of factories making different things. So pretty much anything they needed, they could get here.
Okay.
And so this side here on the stove was for water.
Oh.
So with a fire burning on this side all day long, this would get nice and hot. So you'd have hot water for doing washing your dishes and other cleaning tasks.
Or the coffee or tea for the hot water, this one?
No, you'd use a kettle
This
for
one,
that.
right? Kettle.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Oh.
Yeah, this is lined with copper, so
Oh.
the copper wouldn't be too
I know, yeah.
good for drinking. And then the warming closet was a spot where you could put things up to stay warm. You could warm a dish up in there. Nice, if you were cooking a big meal, you could put things up there. Yeah.
Keep warm, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the whole top gets nice and hot. So that's why we have the clothes iron here
Oh, yeah.
to heat that up. And then the fire would go in this side. Now this stove could use wood or coal, depending what you had.
Oh.
But we think the Bells used wood because the farm had lots of trees. So
I know. The environment is,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the oven is here. And then the door has windows. So you can watch what you're baking.
Oh,
Just
like
water
baking,
it.
right?
Yeah.
这是烤箱，那面呢是用煤或者木炭，他家这儿可能是木炭，因为周围全是树嘛，所以说这个就是用那个木炭烧的这个烤
这
的。
个炉当年挺高的。
Yeah, this looks very nice 。然后这是烧的热水，这水是洗碗呐，或者是什么洗点什么手啊洗脸，但是不是喝的。喝的就是那个开口用那个的 drinking， 那是用壶烧喝的水。
1870几年的房子，这个炉具很高级。
This is 150 years ago, right?
Yeah.
It looks very
yeah,
nice.
yeah. And the kitchen was the hottest and busiest room in the house. So that's why it's at the back of the house. That way you could keep the heat from the cooking out of the rest of the house in the summer, but you could open up the doors and let the heat through in the winter. And then that room, they called the scullery, and that was sort of like the laundry room in a modern house. So that big machine that looks like a barrel, that was
This
a
one,
washing,
right?
yeah, that was a washing machine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we don't know for sure if the Bells had one. That's an antique.
This is like
Yeah.
这是什么东西？
这是洗衣机。他们洗衣的时候就来回这么用手动。
哦。
Yeah.
最早的洗衣机。
It's not electrical.
Nope.
That's used 手洗的手动洗衣机。
手动洗衣机。那是谁发明的？是贝尔发明的。
My brother very interested about this.
Yeah.
This is a Bell invented.
No, that was invented, but there was a washing machine factory in Brantford. They were starting to get common then. well, not every house would have had one, but Alexander and his father loved buying machinery for the house.
Oh, it's yeah, amazing.
Yeah, they loved all this new technology that was available at the time. So they were always buying things like washing machines and apple peelers and there's another machine. Oh, there was a machine that you could, like for the laundry, if you were washing something that had like lots of ruffles, you could run it through that and it would make the ruffles ruffly again.
Oh, 是贝尔发明的。
There was a machine factory, there was a buggy and carriage works that made the horse-drawn carts and stuff. There was various farm tools being made in Brantford.
上去。
哦，不行。
楼上还有讲解员。
啊，对对，这些可能都是他妈妈画的，他妈就是画画的，
上面画的好啊。
对，艺术家。This is her mother's work.
Not these ones. We don't know the artist. Yeah, so this is where most of the family slept. Now Alexander's bedroom is downstairs, and it's the last room you'll see in this house. He got the big room downstairs because he liked to work all night, so they had to be up early and to bed early. So everyone else slept up here. So this room belonged to their maid. So while a girl worked for the Bells, she got that nice big room all to herself.
Okay, yeah, and the sewing machine there,
Yep.
right?
这什么服？这是属于什么屋？
This is
睡房。
睡房，对，这是
The maid.
The maid.
Yeah, so the girl who worked for the Bells, who helped out with the
Like a
house.
coworker,
Yeah, like
colleague.
no, like a servant.
Servant.
Yeah.
servant. 他的仆人。他的仆人住的地方，那贝尔呢在1楼住，first floor， because 他有时候是熬夜嘛，在楼上那个不方便，所以这是他的仆人。
服务员的
servant, maid.
Yeah, yeah. So she would have helped with like the cleaning and the cooking and the sewing.
I know,
Yeah. Yeah, so, which, I mean, a lot of servants didn't get rooms. Some had to even just roll out a mat and sleep in the kitchen. The Bells thought that their servant was part of the family, and so they got a bedroom, just like the rest of the family.
Yeah.
这是服务员的睡房。
那缝纫机嘛，sewing machine， 那缝纫机，那时候那个年代。
当年还有复印机也不容易啊。
应该是。This the sewing machine is about time, right?
Yeah, sewing machines were becoming more popular, and because a lot of things were still being made in the house, so like the women in the family still would have been making up all the sheets and blankets and towels and all their clothing. The sewing machine helped save some work. Before that, it was all hand.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although with the time saving, the ladies' dresses ended up getting fancier and fancier because then they had more time to add more stuff to oldest brother's wife. So Alexander's brother, Melville James, or Melly, was married for 2 years before he died. And his young wife, Carrie, was only 21 when the brother died. And the Bells really liked her, so they asked her to come to Canada, and she said yes, and she stayed here on the farm for 5 years with them until she got married again. She married a young man from Brantford and moved in with him. But the Bells really thought of her as part of their family, and Alexander even gave Carrie the Italian patent rights to the telephone. So whenever someone in Italy got a phone, Carrie got some money, and that way she had her own money separate from her husband's. And she named one of her children with her second husband after Alexander, because they really thought of each other as brother and sister, even though she came into the family because she married into it.
这个房子谁的房子？
这个是贝尔的哥哥的房子。贝尔他哥哥死了，他太太在这儿住了5年，然后他贝尔的太太后来就改嫁了，因为他那个哥哥死了嘛。
贝尔的夫人呢？
贝尔哥哥就他嫂子。
嫂子在这住。
对。
parents.
Oh, parents.
Yeah, so Melville and Eliza Bell shared that room.
So like a master room, right?
Yeah, although it's the same size as the other bedrooms, but.
This is the queen size?
No, it's a double.
Yeah, that looks like
That's as big as the beds got then. Beds were much smaller than they are.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
这是贝尔父母的房间。我问的这是 queen size 的，他说不是，那时候那个床都很小，对，对，都很小。
贝尔父母在这住，
父母不在这住，对，对。
这房间也挺大呀。
还可以吧，这就是 master room 了呗，就是父母的主人套房呗。那时候没有那个厕所，可能是。Is this a washroom here?
Yeah, no, that's a closet.
Closet, oh, closet.
放衣服的地方。
那个就是那个衣柜，那时候衣柜还在外面嘛，不像咱们现在衣柜在墙里头是吧？他是那时候衣柜。
那个帽子是谁的？
那个我现在他爸爸是吧？My brother, the hat is his father's hat.
It's definitely a hat from that time. I don't know if it belonged to his father or not, but his father would have worn. There's pictures of him wearing hats like that.
OK， 不一定。
父母也信仰什么基督教吗？
不知道。There's a Christian. The family is Christian family.
Yes, his mother attended. First, she went to Grace Anglican Church in downtown Brantford, and then she started going to. It's called Farrington Church at the end of the road here. There's just a little stone building that's a church because it's closer to the house. But she was brought up in the Church of England, and his father, I think, had been what's the one in Presbyterian is the church in Scotland. But his father did stop going to church after his ministry. Books by Charles Dickens, the famous English author that wrote like the Christmas Carol and those other kind of traditional Victorian England stories. His ministers thought they were too, I don't know, not appropriate. Although Melville's very good friend, Thomas Henderson, that they stayed with, Reverend Henderson was a Baptist minister, so I don't know if Melville started attending the Baptist church. It's kind of unclear. And Alexander went with his mother to services because then she was deaf.
His wife and his mother, they all dead.
Yep, his mother had an ear infection when she was a girl that left her with very little hearing. And his wife had scarlet fever when she was a small child.
没有人，整个这楼都没有。
Although Alexander did build a bathroom, it's off of his bedroom, so we'll see that.
Okay, yeah.
He didn't like washing up with
Yeah. 这个后面是什么？是后面厕所在后面。
哦，对，这好像有个小房子里。
Yeah. 这是 piano，
Yes.
这是 piano。
Yep.
这个是钢琴，刚才那个呢其实不是
风琴，
对，风琴。
Yeah, Alexander, well, the whole family loved music, but he was the most talented. In fact, when Alexander Graham Bell first started working as a teacher, he taught music at a boys' school his older brother was working at. And it was only after that he began working with deaf children. But that is how Alexander met his wife, Mabel. He was helping her learn how to speak clearly and how to read lips, and they ended up falling in love. So that's Alexander and Mabel. She was the daughter of a very wealthy, and Alexander had been hired to work with Mabel on her speech and on her lip reading because Mabel was about to go out into Boston society, and her parents wanted her to make a good match. Never expected. At first, her father didn't think Alexander was good enough for Mabel, but once he had the idea for the telephone, her father changed his mind. And her father began investing a lot of money in Alexander's idea and helping Alexander work through getting his telephone patented and all the legal procedures that you needed to get done. But when Mabel and Alexander got engaged on her 18th, her father wouldn't let them get married until Alexander finished the telephone. So by then he'd been working on it for about a year and still hadn't made a successful test. So her father thought that might motivate him to keep working, and it worked. And they were married like their entire lives. And his mother, like, she was deaf as well, and this is his mother's hearing aid. So she would put this end in her ear, and then you would speak into that end, and it would make it louder, so she could understand what you were saying.
哦，这就是那个助听器。他耳朵不太好。助听器。
Yeah, that actually belonged to her.
Yeah.
And this was her. Actually, Alexander gave that to her as a gift.
小底那什么。
And this is her little chair that she would sit in.
What's the round one on the ground?
Oh, that's just a little stool for her to get her toes up off the ground.
就是一个小凳子。
Yeah. His mother was very short. She was less than 5 feet tall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Alexander and his father were both very big men. They were over 6 feet tall, and they both got kind of heavy as they got older. So, yeah, and then this room they used for parties. That's why it's such a big room.
Yeah.
They took a wall out so they could have a big space for all their friends and neighbors because they loved having people over at the house.
Yeah.
So it was an important space for them. Yeah, that's Alexander's mother up there.
贝尔的妈妈。
Yeah, that's what she looked like when she was in her 70s. So that was
Oh yeah, looks.
sometime in the 1880s.
Yeah.
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 贝尔的母亲。
Yeah, 贝尔的妈妈。Yeah. Bear's mother.
想那
And that one is his mother.
Yeah, that's his father, and then that's his mother again.
Oh. Okay. So this was her mother drawn by herself.
No, that was done by an American artist that Alexander hired to do portraits of the family.
Oh.
There is one of his father that matches this, but we don't know what. Sure, someday it will turn up. You never know. Any other questions about this room at all, or?
有什么问题吗？
这个钢琴很古老啊。
Yeah, he's interested in the piano.
Yeah, so this is a square grand piano. It was a style that was popular in the 1860s and 1870s in North America.
Oh, okay.
This one was made in Toronto.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they weren't popular for very long because they don't stay in. Bells always had pianos wherever they lived because of music.
This one can still play or not, right?
Not really.
Not really.
We stopped getting it tuned because it was costing so much, and no one at the museum plays well. So
Yeah.
Someday maybe we'll get it restored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
这个就是当时他那个1870年那时候最流行的样式。
最流行的钢琴。
这是多伦多做的。
哦。
Made in Toronto。
Yep.
这多伦多做的钢琴，就是这个样式是当时最流行的。
And so we've got some plants in here now. These are plants that we had outside
对，花房。
in the summer.
Sunshine, right?
Yeah, it is. You can feel it. It's nice and warm in here,
Yeah.
even on a cold day.
Oh, really?
吊篮子。
对。
Yeah, this is just at the perfect spot as the sun goes like across the.
太阳环。
对，就是花房。
Yeah, and then so those are some of Alexander's advertising posters.
哦，这是他做的广告。就是声音的那种，声音的物理声学，好像是这意思。This is for telephone bell.
Well, that was from his teaching days.
Oh.
When he was working in Boston, he said it sounds very grand. It was basically just him working out of his one-room apartment. And then those are the rates that he would charge, but he actually hardly ever charged that much to his students.
Okay.
Because a lot of his students' families couldn't afford that much. So he would drop the price.
Right?
Yeah, his father wrote books on speech.
贝尔当年做的广告。
And then this one is after he finished the telephone, he began renting theaters and doing these big demonstrations.
Oh yeah, this is telephone. See，
Yeah.
这是电话的，这是电话广告，这个是听力的，跟那个电话不太一样。
电话广告做什么意思？当时想宣传。
这个就是 assist the Tom will give the exhibition was the among the when before the people does the music。他这是帮助这个什么那个别人传播这个音乐和那个什么，就是主要是因为他们弹钢琴嘛，就是音乐。而且呢，他好像这个是20英里以内的
，35分钱。
对，35分钱。So this 35 cents is like per minute or?
No, it was just that was how much it cost to watch him use a telephone.
哦
Yeah.
他这是做一个示范，没那么快呢。
Yeah, his parents' house needed a proper bath. So
the tap is very old, right? Very old style.
Yeah, shower.
Shower, yeah.
And then the water came from
够
up
先进
here.
的。
So rainwater from the roof of the house went into the tank
通过水
there.
房出来。
So where is the heat? The tank?
At first, there wasn't. And then there's a pipe that goes down the wall here. That would go to the basement.
Oh.
And then his parents put a little boiler down there.
Oh, boiler there.
And then heated the water there.
Oh.
Alexander liked cold baths, so when he first built it, it was just cold.
哦，
Yeah.
这原来没有热水，后
And
来
then this
加
was his bedroom and workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, this was added on to the house. It was not supposed to be his bedroom,
哦
but it was supposed to be sort of a workroom or a classroom for he and his father to share. But Alexander liked to work all night and sleep all morning,
Okay.
so his parents gave him this room. And that way he would still get some sleep, but he could also work at night when the rest of the house was quiet.
That's why he is stay on the first floor. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
这是房
exactly.
间。
对他呢就必须得住在1楼，因为他晚上熬夜，所以他不能住2楼。住2楼的话影响人休息。
And electrical
他就住在1
energy.
楼。Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he knew from his work with, learning about the human ear, that's basically what your ear does.
当年贝尔发明了有线电报，是不是？
有线电报 ，Yeah, cable, not for the radio.
Yeah, no, he did come up with a wireless telephone. And this is the transmitter. So you would speak into it like this.
哦，就对着这个地方讲话。
Yeah. And then the drum would vibrate.
OK，
And the vibration would create electrical current in this
Okay.
electromagnetic coil.
对，它这个就是你说话 ，excuse me， 你说话这个声音不传动吗？传动这个鼓，这是不像那个打鼓那鼓，鼓引起震动吗？一震动呢，就是把电波，就这个电波大小就顺着这个电波就传出来了。
哦。
Yeah, and then it would be connected by wires.
这2个电线连
Yeah,
上，
to this.
通到
And
这儿，
then, yeah, the current would come through here
对，
and make that
然后这
vibrate.
电线又把把这个电波转换成声波。
Now, when he first tested this in Boston in 1875, it didn't work as well as he wanted it to. You could hear sounds, but you couldn't understand what the person talking into this was saying.
Oh, really?
But it was enough, it was the right idea. So he and with this design, so you would speak into the top,
Okay.
and it would be connected once again to this. So you would listen to this.
哦。
And on the night of March 10th, 1876, in his workshop in Boston, Alexander said, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you," into that device. And across the hall, Thomas Watson heard him clearly.
Wow.
So that was our first voice transmission. That happened in Boston.
Yeah.
But he decided to do his long distance telephone test in Brantford in August of 1876, and he brought this telephone with him.
Oh.
So this is the transmitter,
Okay.
and this is the receiver.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the connect by the wire, right?
Yep. Yep.
And there's also have some the transfer the electrical information to the
Yeah.
mechanical
Yeah.
information.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. It's electrical to mechanical. Yep.
Yeah.
最近的这个啊。
对。
Yeah, so he did 3 tests here, and he got permission to use the telegraph,
Oh.
and that way he didn't have to string miles and miles and miles of wire himself.
Yeah.
So the first call was between the telegraph office in Brantford out to down Mount Pleasant Road this way. There's a little village called Mount Pleasant. Out to that village, the telegraph office in Brantford, to his parents' front veranda, so the front porch that we were just on. And then the third test was between Brantford's telegraph office and Paris, Ontario's telegraph office. And the two towns are only about 8-10 kilometers apart, but the idea that you could talk to someone in the next town was amazing.
Yeah.
And everyone wanted to speak, so he had a friend make this.
Wow.
So 1, 2, 3 people could talk at once.
就是3个人听，就是这个他这一旦声波过来的话，3个人可以在这儿听。
很简单，很简单，
很简单，对对对，是 simple, yeah.
Yep, exactly. And he thought after these tests he would go back to Boston and go back to the school for the deaf. Newspapers had published the story and people wanted to see the telephone, so he ended up having to show people. And he never went back to teaching, but he thought that teaching was his important work.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
And that's how it all started. His father started the first telephone company in Canada in April of 1877, and his wife's father started the first telephone company in the United States at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Bell still.
看，我知道这个。